Hey guys, it's me. Today, I'm going to be talking about Chinoiserie, or as you're supposed to pronounce it, Chinoiserie.
Chinoiserie.
Now, you may be saying to yourself, wow, what a weird way to pronounce something. And you'd be right, unless you're familiar with French. That's because this word is primarily French. In fact, it's a French loan word that the Europeans borrowed. The Europeans used this word to describe how they imitated Chinese and other East Asian artistic traditions. Hence, Chino, referring to China, and Isserie, Chinoiserie. More specifically, Chinoiserie refers to the decorative arts that Europeans attempted to imitate and were fascinated over. It was a consumer fashion. But why? Why should I talk about Chinoiserie other than for the sake of this presentation? After all, there were other interesting consumer fashions that also existed during the same period. There were spices and calicos from the East. There were exotic fruits from the Caribbean. And there were confusing operas from Italy. Well, Chinoiserie was important because far more was known about China in 18th century Europe than any other region. For example, Jesuit missionaries had left accounts of their experience at the imperial court at Beijing. Western readers understood and enjoyed reading the Chinese language. Westerners also liked Confucius and enjoyed the naturalistic style featured in Chinese landscape gardening. Beautiful, isn't it? Because Europe had this unusually comprehensive knowledge about China and its culture, China had caught the European imagination. This is why Chinoiserie even exists, or has existed at all. So, perhaps in better terms, Chinoiserie should be defined as the European infatuation with Chinese culture and its arts. And we'll see this with perhaps one of the greatest examples of European infatuation in the 18th century. And that is with Colonial Charleston. But before we talk about Colonial Charleston, let's do a quick recap of what we've just learned. So, Chinoiserie is the European imitation of Chinese arts. This comes from an ancient appreciation and understanding of Chinese culture, which means that Chinoiserie can be better defined as the European infatuation with the Chinese arts that ultimately led to the European imitation and interpretations of Chinese art, which we'll see with none other than Colonial Charleston. The earliest known reference to Chinoiserie in colonial South Carolina, where Charleston was located, was during Queen Mary's reign. 18th century writer Daniel Defoe says it was Mary who brought in the custom or humor of furnishing houses with chinaware, which spread to lesser mortals and increased to a strange degree afterwards. How right he was. By the 1730s, porcelain was already fairly commonplace in Charleston. Robert Pringle wrote to his peers, saying that he sought supplies for porcelain he could sell to his Charleston customers. David Crawford, on a notice just outside his store, read, "Just imported a large assortment of chinaware as breakfast cups and saucers, dishes, plates, and bowls of all sorts." Robert Pringle not only wrote letters to his peers, but he also ordered from London a set of India pictures, which referred to small sections of hand-painted Chinese newspaper. As the popularity of Chinoiserie increased in colonial Charleston, local artisans responded by learning how to produce objects in the new Chinese taste. This is kind of how Chinoiserie became Chinoisery. This newfound love for Chinoisery was so widespread that by the 1750s, the English writer John Chabert already satirized that so excessive is the love of Chinese art become that at present the fox hunters would be sorry to break a leg in pursuing their sport over a gate that was not made in the Eastern fashion of little bits of wood standing in all directions. Essentially, Chinoisery was a problem. It was a problem not only because of the mass consumerism it caused in 18th century Charleston, but also because it fueled stereotypes and misconceptions about the Chinese culture, which at this point was characterized by a romanticized and often distorted portrayal. This perpetuated Eurocentric notions of cultural superiority and exotism, when in fact, according to David L. Porter, the Chinoisery that adorned many European households was not issued from a scene of Britain's proud domination, but of an uncharacteristically servile obeisance to the cultural and material superiority of the East. So, I hope you guys learned something new today about Chinoisery, and I'll see you in the next one.